First off, I just want to say good morning to everybody for those that are joining us via Zoom or Facebook Live. We are so excited to kickstart our Chamber Conexión webinar series on behalf of the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. This is going to be a bi-weekly thing, and this is going to be pre-scheduled as well. And so we have our guest speaker here, Marco Melero from Qualified Plan Advisors, who's going to give us some really great tips on financial wellness, especially through COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, and just how to make sure that we're all kind of staying afloat. He has some really good tips for individuals and small business owners as well. So we're really excited to kickstart this series with Marco joining us, and our chamber and staff is excited to see what comes of this Chamber Conexión webinar series. These webinars are not going to be very long at all. At most, they're going to be 30 minutes or less. So if you guys have any questions at all, whether you're tuning in via Zoom or Facebook, make sure that you're dropping any questions or comments at all in the chat box on Zoom or the comment section on Facebook. And myself and some staff members will be monitoring those, and we'll be sure to get those answered for you. But with no further ado, good morning, Marco, and welcome. Thank you so much for doing this with us. I'm really excited to hear some of the tidbits that you have as a young adult myself. You know, I know that I need to be financially well, and so I'm excited to see what we can take away from today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, or thank you for allowing me to kick off this webinar series. Well, I'll go ahead and I'll get started. So again, thank you to the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Sarina, for setting this up. And then thank you for all of the attendees that are on right now. And so through this pandemic, the financial needs that our team has seen in the community is they're really kind of, they vary, right? So there are those that need individuals that are maybe struggling through unemployment. They're struggling just to put food on the table for their family. Their businesses are struggling to understand the CARES Act, to understand the payroll protection, new regulations and so forth, and just constant changes in regulations. And so no matter what your needs are, if you're an employer, a small business, an employee, an individual, our team is really just here to provide and be a financial wellness resource in this low touch economy. And what we want to talk about today, the roadmap, is what is a low touch economy? Well, so we'll define really what that means. We'll also define what is financial wellness. So I know that could be somewhat of a buzzword, but then we'll also talk about the impact of poor financial wellness to the community. So that really includes everybody. That includes, again, individuals, employers, small business owners, et cetera, and then some takeaways for the community. So let's define first off what is a low-touch economy. And really what that means is through this post-COVID-19 era, we're going to have an economy that's shaped by new habits and regulation. Both people, organizations will discover the benefits of a new way of living and working, being challenged with traditional business and trying to find new lifestyles as the new normal. And so if you look from the top down, so if you're looking at the employer and what's being brought to those employers because of regulation and policies, you're seeing limited gatherings still. You're seeing travel restrictions for organizations, for employers. You're seeing hygiene requirements. And so I know I've talked to some of my employer clients where their biggest challenge is how do they bring people back to the office safely? And how do those employees feel comfortable coming back to the office? They've had all sorts of talks from only bringing half of their workforce in certain days of the week, and then the other half bringing them the other days of the week. So these are some of the challenges that they're facing in this post-COVID-19. And then from a bottom up, so if you're looking at the employees, again, employees are working remotely. They have to figure out a mixed work-life balance. They're ordering everything online. They have doctor's appointments through like Zoom, things similar to this. And even myself and my family, I feel like we've had this as a challenge where we're trying to work full-time, my wife and I, but then we're also trying to help educate my 5-year-old son, right? So now that it's summer, we're trying to find ways to entertain him while we're working from home. And so that's some of the challenges that we're all facing. I know it's not just our family, but it's others that I've talked to. And the implications of a low touch economy from an employer and a business owner standpoint, there's folks have gone through unemployment, where businesses have gone through where they have to lay folks off or furlough folks off, and employees, they have to change that working at the office to working remotely. Employers and business owners, they're having a challenge to engage not just their clients, but their employees, and being able to communicate with them effectively. They're also having issues with productivity. I know I've talked to some employers or some just leaders of different employers where they're saying, normally in normal situation, we have a well performer, but with now all of these new changes, well, that good performer is being challenged with all of those day-to-day challenges, like working from home and just trying to find that work-life balance. From the employee and individual side, folks are just they're stressed, right? They're stressed over job security. I know several folks that have been furloughed, several of employees or clients of ours that are going through that process. They're struggling to maintain a schedule, a normal work and kind of life balance schedule. They're dealing with anxiety, they're dealing with loneliness, with depression. They're also having financial struggles. So there's financial issues just to try to figure out how to pay basic expenses, and they're having an increase of debt. So people are kind of all over the map. But what we've noticed is this all affects an individual's financial well-being. And the reality is some of these challenges, they've increased because of COVID-19. But the reality is these challenges are the same. And we've seen these challenges even prior to COVID-19. And that's why financial wellness plays such an important part. So let's talk about what is financial wellness. And financial wellness really refers to an overall financial health of an individual, which includes these 4 key elements. Number 1, control over your day-to-day and your month-to-month finances. So folks, we can't just worry about long-term goals. Everybody talks about retirement, especially a lot of the folks in my world, the way that I've grown up in my industry. But the reality is we can't think about 30 years from now if we're struggling with our day-to-day or week-to-week or our month-to-month finances. But it also includes being able to absorb in a financial shock like this pandemic, right? It also includes folks being on track to meet their financial goals, whatever that might be, short-term, long-term. It could be planning for kids' college. It could be to purchase a home. It could be, there's so many financial goals that everybody has. And then the 4th thing that financial wellness, the way we define it, is financial freedom to make choices to allow one to enjoy life. So the reason that we work so hard is to be able, and the reason that we want to make sure we're financially fit is to be able to enjoy our life. So one thing that I want to note is this has been our definition even prior to COVID-19. So we've seen some of the same challenges through COVID-19, but the challenges are the same. Now they've just increased. So financial wellness has always been there as a solution to kind of overcome a challenge like the pandemic. But why is this so important? I'm sure some of you guys are wondering. And so what we want to talk about is the impact of poor financial wellness to our community, and because it really affects everyone. And if we look at the very top, this is a survey that was taken in 2019 by the Employer's Guide to Financial Wellness by Salary Finance. What we're noticing is 48% of people, they worry about money, all right? And from those 48% of people, we're seeing they have an 8.2 times are more likely to have sleepless nights because they're thinking they have financial stress. They're thinking about their finances. With that being said, when they go to work, if they're thinking about their personal finances 3.5 hours per week. So they're going to work thinking about their finances, being financially stressed. Because of all of that, that's causing them to take extra sick days throughout the year. And so when it's all said and done, the consequences to employers, they're seeing that employees are just overall, or individuals are overall being less productive while they're at work. There's additional recruitment costs. Employers are seeing more turnover. There's additional training costs, and really what that all kind of comes down to is that affects employers by about 11 to 14% of salary per year. So those are the costs that employers are seeing, but the reality is, again, is this is affecting all individuals throughout the community. So what are some of the community takeaways? So what should financial wellness be in a low-touch economy? Well, from an employer and a business owner standpoint, work with business partners or providers that are really going to tie all of your benefits together to help your employees overall. So have a financial wellness solution. So do you have a financial wellness if you're an employer or business owner? Do you have one of those financial wellness solutions in place right now? And then also take a look at focusing on increasing your employee productivity through financial wellness, and reach out to my team and reach out to myself, where we can provide you a customized kind of report to show you the impacts of poor financial wellness for your organization specifically, and then the positive effect by implementing a positive financial wellness program. And then implement one-on-one coaching, whether that's digital resources or a phone bank. So we feel in order for financial wellness to be impactful, this one-on-one coaching is huge. And so we've always preached about having in-person and walking employees or walking individuals through this one-on-one coaching. But now in this new world, we've been doing a lot more digital, like Zoom meetings and web conferences, et cetera. As an individual or an employee, take a look at your budget. This is not what they call a sexy topic or something that's exciting, right? But budgeting and spending report, this is really the basics of being financially well. Setting up an emergency savings account, having diversified accounts, whether it's short-term accounts, long-term accounts, it really kind of depends on your financial goals, and then applying certain investments to that. Having a financial plan as well, so you know what you're going to do to meet those goals. You have a game plan, but then again, it's all comes down to working with a financial wellness coach. So working with somebody one-on-one, whether that's right now in person or digitally or through the phone bank. And I know I've kind of talked a lot through some of these resources, and we can go in deeper for some of these things, but don't panic. We are here to help. Qualified plan advisors and my team, again, that's our goal, is to be able to provide financial coaches to employers, or provide financial coaches to individuals that are focused on the overall well-being of your financial health. As from our team, some of the resources that we've been providing really through this COVID-19 standpoint is we've been providing semi-weekly to now weekly participant market volatility updates. And so we're talking about the market, what's going on there. We're also giving updates of the CARES Act, the payroll protection. We're providing quick PDF resources. We also have a quick 5-minute videos to talk about investments and different financial tips that you can take advantage of. And then you can check out at the bottom right-hand corner our COVID-19 website or support page. So thank you so much. Muchas gracias. También si necesitan ayuda en español, aquí estoy para servirles. So thank you. I don't know if there's any questions that you're seeing through the chat there, Serena.
We do have a few. So I do want to backtrack just a little bit, Marco, because first of all, thank you for doing such a quick presentation. I know that we want to keep these webinars kind of like a mini series and keep them short and to the point, but also, provide the contact information of the panelists, so that way our guests can reach out to you should they have any connections that they may need, or any help, or whatever it may be on the financial realm. I do want to backtrack to one of the screens that you shared when you're talking about the emotional stress of thinking about your finances, even when you're in the workplace and at home. I know that, probably more visible now, more than anything, especially with the whole COVID-19 situation. So what advice could you, give to employers on that front, on how to keep their employees engaged and motivated when they know that maybe an organization is trying to stay afloat with pay cuts, for instance? So how can we keep them, kind of engaged, and what advice would you have for an organization that's in that position?
So we have found financial wellness has been a key, and it's been a key through our one-on-one coaching. So through this COVID-19, to give you an example, I've personally, and this is just myself, but this also includes, I mean, this does not include my other team members that are doing the same. So I personally had about over 200 web conference calls, Zoom meetings, teleconference calls, you name it. I've engaged with employees of organization, and what's happening is they're really feeling like I'm representing the employer, but those individuals and the employees are feeling supported through their employer because that's a service that their employer is providing to them. So they're still being connected through the employer because they have somebody proactively reaching out to them that's concerned about their financial well-being. So that's one area that my team has been able to implement to engage those employees
I love
or
that. I know one
individuals.
of the big things through this whole situation is really, I think people are starting to understand how important that human connection is. And having, plan A through B pretty much set in stone for whatever may happen, because we don't know. We have another question. So this is kind of more on a personal note from you, but what's the best advice on an investment philosophy that you would recommend to others?
Well, I don't know if there's that's a tough question to be able to answer in a broad situation. I really think that's really pretty specific to somebody's individual um, individual situation and needs. So really what I mean by that is, and investments, that's really only half the story. I think the bigger question to ask is, what are somebody's financial priorities? Because right now, someone's financial priorities could be just understanding how to file for unemployment. It could be understanding the CARES Act, the payroll protection. How does the stimulus check work? And so none of that has to do with investing, right? But that has to do with meeting their financial priority. Now, it could be that somebody's financial goal is to plan for retirement or plan for kids' college. Well, in that standpoint, then investments kind of take a play into answering that question. And if retirement is 5 years away versus retirement for somebody else could be 30 years away, those investment strategies or those investment philosophies are going to be completely different for somebody that has 5 years needs versus a 30-year needs, right? So it's tough to answer that question in a broad sense. I think the reality is it depends on someone's personal situation to be able to answer that specifically for them. And I think that's really where our financial coaches come into play, is work with somebody. That's the point of all of this, is work with a financial coach so that way they can customize the investment philosophy for them.
I like it. And we have one other question. I guess,
Sure.
what advice could you give to a millennial, for instance, versus a small business owner when they're trying to, be financially well, right, through this whole situation, and even just in terms in general? I guess what's kind of the starting point? Is it just really identifying what their priorities are and, saving a little bit here from paycheck to paycheck? Or is it, kind of investing in that retirement plan maybe and reaching out to you to kind of do that? Or I'm guessing it's kind of across the board is what it seems. Is that fair to say?
So I think number one is identifying what are your financial priorities, right? So if you're a millennial, somebody's financial priorities could be paying off student loans. And I'll give you an example. So some of the conversations that I personally have had with millennials has been, okay, well, I have all the student debt. How do I pay that off? So some of the resources that we've provided them here recently is consolidating the debt, especially with interest rates being so low. So for a millennial, it could be consolidating student loan debt. And then it also could be just understanding the basics of their benefits through their employer. Because millennials have not had a long history of employment. It could be for some of them. Some of them it's just understanding, what does your retirement plan look like? What does your medical benefits look like? And being able to take advantage of their entire benefit package, right? So again, it's all about working with the coach to making sure you have that customized approach. So that would be for a millennial. For a business owner, it's completely different. But again, it's going back to the basics and understanding what are their financial priorities. So for some business owners, is what we're seeing is there's half of the businesses that are out there that start a business, they either file for bankruptcy or they're no longer around in about a 3 to 4 year period. So the reality is being able to have an emergency reserve, I guess sufficient cash flow is huge for a startup business or a business owner. And so being able to put some of that away is huge. But also risk management. So risk management is real big as a business owner. So they're taking a lot of risk being a business owner and being able to be in business for themselves and for their family. And so finding ways to minimize those risks, I think, are key. And that's really where our financial kind of coaches come in and start looking into as a business owner, someone's financial picture and figure out how to minimize risk, and then also how to have money stashed away for a rainy day like a pandemic.
It makes sense. We have a couple more questions I want to get to. One question is from Diana Pittman. She's asking, what are the costs for your service?
So our costs for our service are really going to vary. So a lot of my clients, I work with employers, and so we're working with the employer, and the employer could really figure out how to pay for those costs. So they can pay for it on a fee basis, so a day, on a per day basis, and they can pay for those costs themselves, or they could also pass those costs on to the employees. And then you can also tie that into your benefit packages. And again, those costs could be paid by the employer or by the employee. So there's really different ways to pay for those costs, and it's going to vary. So for example, my smallest client actually here in the Fort Worth area is 170 or so employees. And my largest client is 5,000 employees. So when you talk about cost, that's obviously going to vary because the level of service for that Fort Worth client that is located in Fort Worth and all of their employees are in Fort Worth is going to be different than for the client that has 5,000 employees, where I'm literally calling folks and meeting them all over the country, right? And so there's additional costs that go along with that, with team members, et cetera. So I think it's really going to vary based on the situation from an employer. From an individual standpoint, I would encourage you to reach out to myself, and we can talk about what your personal situation is, have a 30-minute intro meeting, and then based upon that 30-minute intro, I can gather some more information and determine what your needs are, and then based upon the level of needs, we can talk about more costs specifically to you. So again, it comes down to it's going to depend on the employer. It's going to depend on the individual.
Got it. We have one question from our president and CEO, Annette. First off, she says, Marco, thank you so much for doing this. I have a question regarding those that are so close to retirement, specifically parents. Will this economic crisis negatively impact their plans to retire within the next 1 to 2 years? What should they be doing or looking into to make sure their plans aren't ruined?
Yeah, so it definitely has for many folks that are nearing retirement, even within like a 5-year period, it's definitely affected those folks for sure. And the reality is something that we do on a regular basis, and this is even prior to COVID-19, is we're meeting with those individuals one-on-one, either annual, quarterly, or semi-annual basis to figure out what are their game plans, and if they still, because everyone's financial situation is really going to be different, right? So it's I can't give you a one-size-fits-all solution. For some folks, it could be that, yeah, it's going to push their retirement back, 5 to 10 years. But how do you look at your investment strategy to make sure that you're aligned to be able to cope with that 5 to 10 year strategy? For some folks, it could be where their investments have additional income or have additional investments. So this is just a blip on the radar. Really, folks are coming from all over the place. But the goal is to meet the solution is meeting with somebody one-on-one on a regular basis, whether that's quarterly, semi-annually, or on an annual basis, and really diving in deeper to their personal financial situation. So that's really what it all comes down to it.
Well, that's really all the questions that we've had that have come in. Marco, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. You are a member of our chamber and one of our ambassadors. So should anybody joining us via Zoom or Facebook need his contact information again, feel free to reach out to myself or one of our staff members at the Hispanic Chamber. We're more than happy to get you all connected. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining in and submitting questions. And Marco, this has been really great and really informational. I would love to share your contact information post-webinar, if that's okay, and see what comes out of this. I think this is really helpful, especially given the circumstances that we're all going through. So thank you so much for speaking on financial wellness.
Thank you so much, Ladiana. Thank you so much for Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Have a good day.